So it sounds like it's up for state law in most of these cases. You embarked on this journey 30 years ago thinking, hey, we should run presidential elections via ranked choice voting. What are the steps we would need to take? Because I've been saying for a while, we could be staring at a Trump-Biden rematch, and a lot of Americans would look up saying, like, hey, like, what are my other choices? And then the major counter-argument right now is like, oh, if anyone else runs, it's going to spoil it for one party or the other, Ralph Nader effect, et cetera, et cetera. So what do we need to do to actually make it so Americans could have multiple choices in a presidential election?
Well, so we talked about the presidential primaries. For the general election, currently, that's all done state by state, right? So Maine now uses ranked choice voting for president. So in Maine, in 2020, people ranked candidates, and there was like a Green Party candidate, there was a Libertarian candidate, and Joe Biden actually got more than half the votes, so the ballot didn't need to kind of kick in to the second choices, but those people could vote for the Green and Libertarian and not worry about the quote-unquote spoiler effect. So that's something that each state can do on its own, just using ranked choice voting within the state. There is fun ideas. In fact, I wrote a long article for the Harvard Law and Policy Journal about how you could combine state action on ranked choice voting with state action toward the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact Plan that is established as a way to effectively have states unite to create a national popular vote for president. And they actually could build ranked choice voting on top of that. And there's sort of laid that out. But that's a way that you effectively could actually have a state-driven process that allows states to be part of a national popular vote for president. If we ever want a truly united states of America election, we would need a constitutional amendment to kind of lock in that we'll have a national popular vote. And that would be the time to have a conversation about how to have the method of election for president as we change the Constitution. You can do it with the National Popular Vote Plan, sort of state by state, or you could sort of do a kind of this constitutional change, which is I don't think we're very close to doing, but that's where you theoretically could do it. One thing that's interesting when you look at all the presidential elections around the world, and a lot of countries have prime ministers who come out of the legislature, but there are a number of states, or countries rather, that vote directly for president. Pretty much all of them do require a majority, and most of them do a runoff election. But like say Ireland has ranked choice voting for president, and but that idea of upholding majority rule that you should get at least half the votes to become the chief executive is a general principle that's out there, and I think that conversation is an important one for us to have, and partly why we should have ranked choice voting state by state for governors as well, right? It's like we should make sure that the folks who are, in that important position of power have done the work necessary to earn majority support.
Yeah, who the heck wants someone who didn't get 50% of the vote? You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, that's one of the reasons why Maine adopted it is that you had Governor LePage win without 50% of the vote, and they looked around and said, well, that's not cool.
Yeah, they'd had actually 3 consecutive governors, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, and 1 independent. So conveniently, like, each side got a chance to win with less than 40%, right? So
Wow.
They were winning like 38, 36, or whatever. And at least one of those pretty definitively would not have won in a head-to-head contest. And that created a conversation. So it wasn't surprising that Maine was the first state to pass it.
So it sounds like for the presidential, you have this constitutional amendment approach for a national election. Or just you get a bunch of states on board. So it's already in effect
Yep.
in Maine. And so if you had enough states adopt it, and certainly I'm very, very excited about the state by state approach. All right, Rob. So here's an idea where we do it nationwide. Check it out. The 2020 presidential election gets decided by maybe 70,000 votes in 4 states. And the 2024 race will probably be similar. So the 4 swing states that everyone knows are going to be very, very close are Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin. Those things are probably going to be within a percent. And then if you were to expand it a little bit to 2%, you end up including Pennsylvania and Michigan.
Right.
So
Which is not very many, by the way.
It shows how messed up our system is.
Yeah,
44 states, you're baked. 6 states, maybe might swing one direction or another. So they have all the power and the political ads. They can look forward to that. But let's imagine that you got a coalition of, let's say 500,000 independents or swing voters in those 6 states to say we are going to back whichever presidential candidate comes out for nonpartisan primaries and ranked choice voting. And maybe let's throw it in there, the Fair Representation Act, which you and I can talk about. Yeah. You could get this fulcrum, because our country is so polarized and our system is so dumb, honestly, you could make it a winning issue in the 2024 presidential race between the 2 major parties. Call it 5 and 6, which just stands for 5% in 6 swing states. What do you think?
I think that is a potent concept. You just have to find, if you can find those, if you can find the voters, if you can find 5%, probably even 3%, but hey, 5% is all the better, who agree to prioritize that. And it's really challenging for a lot of people, because they can say, well, I really love these issues, but I care about something else that's associated with that party, their views on abortion rights or climate change or, economic issues of a certain kind, right? Like you have to essentially say, I'm going to make those secondary. I'm going to vote based on these priorities, because if we can make this change, it'll make a change in our politics that'll allow me to be able to do forever after much more of what I want about all the other things that I care about. So if you can persuade people to do that, it would be very powerful, right? It would be a foolish candidate who essentially said no. As particularly, I think those issues are good issues. Like, obviously, I'm biased, but I think those issues are ones that voters would appreciate a candidate being for, right? It is a kind of a voters' first agenda, right? Which is like that candidate is standing up for voters, doing the right thing, and these 5% of people are now going to vote for them. Which, if you do the math, if they're not all from one side, right? If they sort of like include some people who might vote Republican and some people who might vote
Let's say half and half, even ideally.
That would be the powerful thing, right? If you truly have a certain set of swing people, that would mean that whoever makes that position, if only one of them does, is getting this boost, which, given the way our politics is, that's a huge boost. Yeah, very powerful.
So Asian Americans are 9.1% of the electorate in Nevada, 4.4% in Georgia. So those are 2 states, 3% in the other states. And they tend to be a very pragmatic group, so non-ideological as well. So I think you could make this happen. And I may be spending a significant amount of time and energy making this happen.
Yeah, no,
5 and 6.
Yeah, no, 5 and 6. That's 5 and 6 and 24. Yeah, yeah. The math we'll have to work that out. It could be 4 and 6 and 24, and then it would all be like a sort of like a product.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Because the fact is, you're right that 5% isn't even necessary. I mean, these margins are so
4%,
close.
if it's evenly divided, that does it. Like if you get 2% Republican leaning, 2% Democratic leaning, that's enough.